Ponytails podcast. Here we go.
What is up, everyone? Andres Gambo here, and I am the host of the Ponytails podcast. I am excited for today's episode. I have Nate Hambrick waiting in the green room to get on and talk to us about his fantastic book, Crush Your Kryptonite. Got done reading it just yesterday, so I'm excited to talk to him about it as a fellow author. So super excited. If this is your first episode again, my name is Andres, and this is the Ponytails podcast. Wherever you're listening from, and welcome. I hope you enjoy. If you don't know why it's called the Ponytails podcast, maybe you don't really know. Maybe you just stumbled upon this. Maybe you're just a friend that one of the people on the team met. Let me fill you in really quick. So this is a interview, kind of like a open style. We're just going to see what happens. We don't know what the conversation is going to be. It's recorded and unedited. It's just posted. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. But it's about primarily this crazy college internship that all of our guests and myself did while in college. So we went 80 hours a week, Monday through Saturday, selling books door to door, like educational books to families and helping them with education. And so, of course, from that comes some crazy fun stories of, life and sorrow and hilarity and intensity, and it's all a bit of fun. But we've had some really cool guests over the what is it now, year and a half, 121 episodes in now, which it's been a cool blessing to see it grow and people enjoy it. Of course, there's 100,000 living alumni supposedly that are out there that could potentially be listening to this, and so we are super thankful for everyone. If you enjoy this, if you are having fun listening, please make sure you subscribe, leave us a review on Apple Podcast. We're on Spotify as well, Google Cast, Stitcher. We're all over the place. Follow us on Instagram. Our merch is going to be launching here. It's been a soft opening, and then the grand opening of all our stuff is on our website. So go to the ponytailspodcast.com and go check out all that stuff. That is kind of who we are. Now, a quick word and shout out to some of the alumni that we work with of the internship itself. Now, we're not affiliated with Southwestern, but we do like to stay in touch with alumni all over the place. And the first shout out is going to be to my good buddy Will Metcher, who was kind of the inspiration for this, or what part of the story, the inspiration for this. But if you're like me, one of the biggest things you miss about being in Southwestern is the ability to make a lasting impact. And so the reason why book people were so unique is because we were college kids teaching other college kids how to learn things and do things that most people don't even learn until their 30s, 40s, and 50s. Or if you read Nate's book, that's really the only place you're going to find these principles of excellence. And so if you want to be the kind of person who makes an impact on those people, you need to work with Will Metcher. Unless you live under a rock, you're probably aware of Southwestern Consulting. But the cool thing is that Will is one of their best and most successful coaches, and he's hiring people to work with him. So every one of the coaches that he's working with, they've earned six figures and have an incredible career, just making a lasting impact on the people that they work with. And so that's a big shout out to Will. Love you, buddy. Also want to give a shout out to Seth Hood and Zane Gallagher, who basically are helping us get into our best shape ever with Bizzler. We're going to make an announcement on this here throughout the episode probably. But if you're the kind of person who's struggling to kind of stay accountable to getting fit and eating healthy, most people end up starting out, your New Year's resolutions or your summer resolutions, and they end up losing track and losing the steam that they started with. So, or they don't really have a clear idea of how to go to the gym and work out and have a solid foundation on those habits. And so these guys noticed that most people don't have that and they struggle with that. And so they started Elevate Wellness. So our team has actually been using them for months. We're seeing really great results. I've had some health issues last winter, and because of that, and ever since working with these guys, it's actually been really cool to see that my body kind of react to that and no longer really have any struggle with it. So I've been really thankful for Seth and Zane for helping us kind of get into our best shape, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so we love to say elevate your mind, your body, and elevate your life with Elevate Wellness. So make sure you guys reach out to them if you are looking to jump on board with us. They have a cool party going on, man. They on Facebook, and the unit and the movement that they've created has been awesome to see. and to be a part of it. So it's so fun. They're helping us get ready for Bizler. I'll make a quick announcement on that. So if you don't know and you're an alumni listening in, Bizler is a trip that we're planning for alumni in Cancun, August 15th through the 19th of this year. So it'll be the first ever. We're going to do this once a year. It's not always going to be the same location, but if you sold books and your spouse didn't, they're welcome to come. But the biggest primary reason for this is just to have a really cool environment where people can kind of connect and have this experience that we've had on the show, but at a grand scale with everybody involved. So we invite you to our party, August 15th through the 19th. It's going to be in the Riviera Maya at the Valentine Imperial. It's like a 5-star all-inclusive resort, much nicer than the ones we went to in Sizzler. Yeah, if you want more details on that, there's a link below in the description that you can click on. It's a video that's going to describe all of the details, including flights, how to get there, how to sign up, who's going, all that jazz. So just click below. You can go check it out there. And then last but not least, I want to give a big shout out to Quentin Roberts. He's a former 7 Summer Bookman, and he's working with Cardinal Senior Benefits. Cardinal started 4 years ago with Southwestern alums Pedro Vega and Nick Dale, and they have a crazy awesome team. They've doubled and tripled in growth every year for like the last 4 years since they started, and they're doing it again in 2022. So pound for pound, they have the most production per agent of any final expense company in the entire country, I believe. So they don't do any cold calling. They don't do any prospecting. Everything is all fresh, warm leads where they're able to have a 6-figure income working about 25 to 35 hours. They're doing a pretty heavy push for recruiting, and they're offering a $500 bonus for anyone who's hired and gets their parent support letter in. So in addition, if Ponytails gets some 5 leads and one of them gets hired and the leads get hired, then we're going to pick one of the 5 people to get a free trip to Bizler. So feel free to recommend yourself, anybody you know with Southwestern experience or solid sales experience. So they don't have to be exclusively book people, but obviously that's preferred. Send us a DM on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and we'll get you in touch with Quentin. They already have a couple people, one person for sure that they've hired on their team from the podcast, and then I think a couple in the pipeline. So we're excited for that. Now, want to give a big introduction to our guest today, Nate Hambrick, man. So I met Nate when I was working with Self-Publishing School about a year and a half ago. Actually, the podcast was already going when I met Nate, and so it's so exciting. They got a really cool team out there that works with them. But Nate has been involved with them. Now he sold for 2 summers with Southwestern from 2014 and 2015, and it was pretty cool career for Nate. He had the #1 in-school team for Dynasty his 2nd summer, winning the Cornerstone Award, which I won myself. And so I know how hard that is, and I am not surprised because Nate is that badass. And he is also the author of Crush Your Kryptonite. If you guys, we're going to talk about this book, start out, and if you guys want more details on that, you guys can click on the link below. There's going to be a link in the comments as well, so you can go purchase this book. But we'll let him talk about it. I'm going to bring him on the screen right now. Boom! What is going on, pal?
Andres, how are you, brother? So pumped to be with you.
Dude, I'm taking over the world, hopefully.
Let's go. I'm so excited. I've been wanting to be on this podcast for probably since you started. So it's been a long time coming.
Heck yeah, dude. I'm glad you're here. 121 episodes. Had to get you in.
Let's go, dude. Finally.
Bro, I read this. Awesome job, man. Do you mind if I dig into this right away? Should we just jump in?
Oh, please. I would love to talk about it.
Cool, man. Well, first of all, overall, tell me a little bit about like the inspiration for this. So, like, because on here you talk about why am I doing this, and we kind of mentioned this in the green room. But why this? Why a book? Why was this important to you? How did this come about? The story of writing a book.
Yeah, so I've actually had the title Crush Your Kryptonite since my sophomore year in college. So even before I started selling books, before I did insurance, before I worked with Self-Publishing School. And really where it came from was a place of having friends, people that I really, really love, good people that had something in their life that was just crushing them, something in their life that was keeping them back from who I feel like they were called to be. And I think honestly, that's what attracted me to Southwestern Advantage was I wanted to surround myself with people that were willing to face the hard stuff and just crush whatever was keeping them back. So, Kryptonite is, it's the Superman reference, right? Superman is all powerful. He can do basically everything. He's unlike every other hero in that he's got every superpower you could ever have. And yet there's one thing that can bring him down almost instantly. And so that's where the title came from. And that's what the book's about, is like, we all have at least one thing, probably more. We probably have a few things that are just, eating our lunch, that are just keeping us back, holding us down. And until we crush those things, bluntly put, we're going to be mediocre. We're going to be average until we choose to face those hard things. So that's kind of the motivation for the book. And then, as I sold books, like, that thought kept on coming up of like, what are the kryptonites that most people have that I'm choosing to crush here? And then whenever I started in insurance and self-publishing school, like, it's been a constant theme in my life. And so, yeah, I am so excited that the book is in stores, and it's doing really, really well, which has been an awesome ride.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring this up too on the air with you, because I wanted to commend you and just want not behind the scenes, but into your face, I guess, as much as in your face we can be here over over Zoom or whatever. But
Yeah.
dude, number one in PR and advertising for 85 consecutive days. How amazing! How does that feel? Like to see that your book is the number one book on Amazon. For 85, I mean, because that's there's a lot of books that are written about
That's
advertising and PR.
Yeah.
It's not like you're over here at number one for like children ages 0 to 6 on like, you're not beating Where's Waldo, right? This is like, I mean, we're talking like Tony Robbins writes book, Don Miller talks about, like, you're crushing them. How did you how does that feel? How did you make it so that you could have this level of success? Talk to me a little bit about I mean, I'm even curious for myself, for my own book. How does this work?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just like in books, is a lot of times our goals seem overwhelming, or achievements seem overwhelming, until you actually just break down the mechanics of what it actually takes. So Ryan Holiday, one of my favorite authors, got a lot of great books. I sell more books than Ryan Holiday on a consistent basis. And it's easy to just think that, I would not consider myself as great as Ryan Holiday. He is still in a whole nother world, and I look up to him in so many ways. But really, all that I did was I looked at the metrics and I figured out exactly what my activities needed to be to beat Ryan Holiday. And I wasn't actually just going after him. I was going after everybody. He just happens to be, I think he's number 6 for his PR and advertising book, and I'm number 1. So really what it came down to is, for me, understanding how Amazon works. And the bestseller charts aren't necessarily the person who sold the most books. It's the person who sells the most books consecutively. So, a lot of people, they'll go out, they'll sell 5,000 books in a day because Tony Robbins promotes them. And then they'll go and sell 2 the next day. And so Amazon, the way their algorithm works is it doesn't actually push that person to the top. It prefers somebody like me that sells at least 10 books every single stinking day. And so once I realized that, it takes a lot of the pressure off, right? Because you and I, we both sold books. We both know how metrics work. I do sales for a living. So now it wasn't, how do I sell 3.2 million books? Because that goal is overwhelming. Like, I just can't even fathom what that actually looks like. What it took for me was, how do I sell a minimum of 10 books Monday through Sunday, every single day, and never let go, not let up a single time. And once I figured that out, then it's really a piece of cake. And so before I published the book, I was going for 90 days consecutively, and I'll hit that mark on Friday. So I am pumped. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's wow. I have so many questions about all this stuff.
Sure.
I'm so happy to do it. I'm so glad that I have you. It's like I get to pick your brain. Yeah. I don't forget our listeners. No offense, everybody, but I'm just taking notes here. Like, all right, I'm just kidding, everybody. We love you. We love you lots. Thanks for the support. But okay, so let me pick your brain some more about this. So the algorithm, understanding the algorithm, and I think it's a powerful lesson overall in life in general, is understanding the rules of the game that you're playing, right? Yep. Because if you want to win, you got to know the rules. You got to know how to bend them, and use them to your will. And in your case, the rules are a law of averages, it sounds like. And so how were you able to figure out that it was 10 books? Why not like 20, and why not 2? Like, where did that number come? Did you just come up with that number, or like, how did that come about?
No. So there are, just like everywhere in life, and this is actually one of the principles in Crush Your Kryptonite, is there is somebody out there somewhere that knows the keys to success for every problem. So take anything you suck at, whether it's fitness, money, I I don't know, relationships, girlfriend, spouse, whatever it is, somebody in the world knows how to solve your problem. There is somebody out there that can do whatever it is you're trying to figure out. And for me, for books, there's somebody out there that knows exactly how to do this. I do actually work for self-publishing school, and they've got basically the keys to almost every single problem out there. But there's a guy named Dave Chesson that we're actually affiliates with here at self-publishing school that put out a program called Publisher Rocket. And it tells you exactly what you need to hit to be number 10, exactly what you need to hit to be number 1. And they update that like every week. And so it wasn't really a secret. Like, I did my research, I did my homework. The algorithm said I needed, a minimum of 10 books, but I need to sell a lot more than 10 books a day. But at a minimum, I sell 10 books every single day. And as soon as I understood that, it was like, oh, well, I can figure out, I think I can do that. Like, I can find 10 people a day to buy my book. Now, some days I sell a lot more than that, but at a minimum, I knew I could do that. So going into it, before I set my goal, like, I found out the metrics I needed to hit. I knew not 100%, but probably 95% of everything that needed to happen for me to achieve that goal. So when I stepped into it, I was very confident I was going to hit it before I did. So I called my shot before I ever published the book.
That is so cool. And the cool thing with this too is like the content that you have on here is really good. It's a really cool principle.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
For success. And so besides the fact that you knew the metrics, you also had a good product, right? So kind of that makes sense now. Why 85 days later, you're still number 1 on this massive category on Amazon. And it's just going to, continue to be that way for sure. So that's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. That is awesome. I love that. Now, from a standpoint of the actual writing and the writing process, how long did this take you to write? Like what, because you said sophomore year of college. So like, how was this process for you? What were some of the challenges you met along the way? Because this is where I can share a little bit too, and this is more coming from personal experience. What was this like for you?
So the reason I was laughing, sorry, that was a little bit preemptive, is because I actually finished this book last February and put it on the shelf for 10 months, which is very much against everything that I believe in. But I wasn't procrastinating per se. I finished the book. It is much like the title. It's a tad aggressive. It's not nearly as aggressive as like the 10X rule or a lot of other self-help books. But one of my concerns with publishing the book is that somebody that's not in the right mindset would read this book and really just take it the wrong way. And also, I had only been married for about 1.5 years at the time. And so I was, questioning all of my beliefs, right? Because the principles that I had written about were 100% accurate for certain circumstances, but, certain keys don't work in other locks, if that makes sense. And so I finished it last February, but I wanted to make sure that I believed 100% of everything that I put in the book. So I sat on it for, I think it was 10 months. And then finally I just realized, you know what? I've sat on it long enough. I've thought through this. I'm going to publish this book knowing I don't have it perfect, right? I do not, everything in this book, it's not 100% perfect, but it can be very, very helpful to get people the next few steps. So 10 years from now, I'm going to look back at a couple things in this book and be like, oh, I've actually learned, I've actually grown. Read this. No matter how much I grow, there's always somebody that's going to be in this exact spot that needs to hear this precise thing, whatever that thing is, right? And so that gives you permission to just put yourself out there and let the cards fall where they may. And so one of the things that I really struggle with, and we can talk about, books and how books really help me with this, is even though I know it's not possible, there is a part of me that wants everybody to like what I do. And that's completely impossible. Like, you cannot please everybody. And so just realizing that, hey, I'm going to put myself out there in a big way and doing it anyway. And so sorry, I kind of got off track there. I knew before I published the book that 40 to 45,000 people were going to see my book every single day. So that's how many impressions my book gets a day. About 40 to 45,000 people see my book. That's a lot of people. That's hundreds of thousands a week. That's going to be millions and millions of people. I cannot control their perception of me. All I can do is help them to the best I can, try and market to the people that I think are open-minded. And if, somebody hates it, whoop-de-doo. I can't help everybody, but I sure can help, thousands of people, 10,000s of people, and potentially millions one day.
Bro, that is so that's so good. It reminded me of one of the quotes in the book that I wrote down that it's your quote. It's a good decision in the moment is better than a perfect decision once it's too late. And it kind of plays to what you're just saying, where it's just like, you know what, it's not perfect, but if you wait for it to be perfect, you might not ever publish it, because no book, no story, no opinion, no thoughts, no philosophy is perfect, right? And so the fact that you just decided to overcome that fear of having it be perfect or having it be just how you thought it was going to be great, uh that is so cool. There's a lot of wisdom there, because also on the other hand, you also realize, hey, because I'm growing and changing as a human being. I mean, because once you'll be a father, then you'll be a father of a toddler, then you'll be a father of a teenager, then you'll be a father of a college student, and then your life and perspectives are going to change. So the way you thought of this is going to change, and so it's never going to be perfect, even if it is perfect for when you wrote it. You know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
so brilliant wisdom right there for anybody. I mean, whether it's like you're writing a book or you're wanting to try a new skill or whatever, pursue your dreams, or it's the same thing. It's never going to be the right time. So just might as well like go for it. Right. And learn. Oh, that's beautiful.
Go
Dude,
for it. And one of the things, I'm glad you brought up that quote. A good decision in the moment is better than the perfect decision once it's too late. The cost of doing nothing is more than the mistake. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned working with folks like Chandler Bolt, where he owns, I don't know how much it's worth, a $40 million company at the age of 27, is he's realized that his mistakes cost a lot less than indecision, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that frees you up. Once you like really internalize that frees you up to go out and make a ton of mistakes. Not that you're trying to make the mistakes, but just realizing that even if you had a time machine, knowing what you know now, going back, you're still going to make a ton of mistakes and mess ups because the world is constantly changing. You can't get 100% right. So just, get it as right as you can and keep moving forward. Forward motion is your friend. And you're going to learn a lot faster by doing that.
It's also a lot easier to clean up mistakes when you have momentum.
100%. Yeah.
Right. So as you're moving forward, it's like, all right, so I messed that up, but you know what? I mean, it's rolling so fast that we can pick this up easier than just staying stalled. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And so then, and then the writing process for you, I mean, it's scary, right? To put, you kind of mentioned this, you touched on this, where it's like, it's scary to put yourself out there like this, because I mean, anybody can write like a paragraph on Facebook about something they care about. Right. And that's important. I'm not saying that that's not important, or like to write a blog or share a video, right? Write a song. But when you're writing a book, you dig much deeper than just the paragraph or even the essay that you could write, whatever, to a friend, or you have to like dig deeper than just the surface level opinions and really explore your thoughts and your it's like someone reading your journal on a specific topic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
it's
so
you're vulnerability. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you were so exposed. You publishing a book, you're telling someone, hey, this is something I cared about enough to take the literal hours that it took to put this together, not just to even write it, but to put it together. And so what was it scary to hit publish for you? What was that moment when you hit publish on Amazon, and how did it feel?
It's so scary. And, it's ironic because I wrote a self-help book, and I joke with other self-help authors about this, but I wrote the book on procrastination and fear. And guess what I felt whenever I was writing it? Fear. And I wanted to procrastinate, And so it's really cool. It's like, these things never go away. You just get a little bit better and a little bit better at facing them. And so, having help's a big part of it. That's, we all know that. We all know that we need help. But at the same time, so often we try to do things by ourselves. And so I had a coach at self-publishing school. I had many coaches at self-publishing school. And so really just surrendering to the process and realizing that they know a lot more than I do. And the same thing goes for listeners out there. Like if you're wanting to write a book, like reach out to self-publishing school, like tell them Nate Hambrick sent you, let's get you some discounts, and, let's get you some help. I would love to help you. Like I have learned so much, not just about writing, but about marketing, the way that, people's psychology plays out on the internet. Like I have learned so much in this process, and I want to help you. I don't even know who you are potentially, but I want to help you. And there are other people like me that want to help you wherever you're at. So surrounding myself with a ton of mentors, just was super helpful. And, a little bit of vulnerability right now. Like there were so many times where I, was tempted to just do it by myself. Like I got the coaching. I'm like, I've got this. I know what I'm talking about. Let me do this. And I would get stuck and frustrated. And instead of just going back to the source and getting more help, I would try and figure it out by myself, which is such folly. And I know that, but I'm also human. And so there were many points at which I, just said, you know what, I need to be a practitioner. I need to practice what I preach. Let me go get some help. And it's amazing, how much simpler things were once I had somebody that had already done it, explain it to me. And some of the coaches that I worked with, like we work with a guy named Scott Allen. So huge shout out to his books. He sold 250,000 books of his self-help books, and they're phenomenal. Very similar to the concepts that I talk about. And so whenever I've talked with him, like he would share so many things that would help me from a writing perspective, a marketing standpoint, book cover design, title placement. All these things are what got me to where I'm at. So I take very little credit for where I'm at. I just was really, really good at sitting at the feet of people that had already done it before.
Well, that's an extremely humble, attitude, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that about you. You've always been that way. But honestly, you had to sit and write.
That's true.
Nobody did that for you, right? Like you wrote, this is your thoughts. Yeah. So that even though the coaching is important and it is helpful, the who versus how, right? Like find someone who's done it and then ask them how type of mentality. But at the end of the day, you had to sit on a computer for hours and hours and or maybe in front of a journal or whatever, however you did it, and think and process. Which I wanted to ask you about, like how did you decide to pick the order of like the chapters, because they're all like important like principles. And do you mind if I read them out loud, the name of the chapters?
Sure.
Or is that something you go? So you got crush your negativity, master your effectiveness, crush your perpetual noise, which I really like that one as well. Crush your entitlement. I like that you went to the woods and kind of took time out. I need to do that. Anyway, crush your entitlement, master your priorities and potential, crush your procrastination, master your friendships. Love that one. Your superpowers, kryptonite, and how will you crush your kryptonite? How did you decide the order of this? Like why negativity first and not like third or whatever? Like how did you come up with the outline for this?
Yeah. So, it's funny. I never thought you would ask me that, but this is actually kind of an interesting story because that's not the original order. I put them in that order. The final order, I literally changed like 2 weeks before it was done. So it kind of happened at the very end. So the reason I put crush negativity first was because I needed to explain to people how I got set on this journey. And so, crush negativity is all sharing about, Southwestern principles, positive self-talk, affirmations, putting the things you want to happen in front of you so that they happen, right? Visualization, all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted the audience reading the book to understand where I'm coming from. This isn't something that I always knew. My parents didn't teach me this, right? I learned this in college. And I really wish like somebody had taught me this when I was 12. Like if somebody had told me, Nate, if you're being negative, just say good stuff out loud and your brain can't be negative anymore. Like if they had told me that whenever I was 12, like imagine how much further along I'd be in my journey, right? But anyway, I got there eventually, in my early 20s. And so crush negativity, like I needed to tell them like, hey, I was indoctrinated is the word. I was indoctrinated into the positivity cult whenever I joined Southwestern. And I'm one of those that I'm eternally grateful for Southwestern. I don't think it's a perfect company, but like they did some amazing things for me. And I am so thankful that I was a part of that. And so anyway, that's why that chapter's first. And then some of the other chapters, like the ones on friendship, isolation, all that kind of stuff. I wanted to leave that towards the end because I'm talking about really touchy topics. Like I touch on some things that people don't want to talk about because the Me Too movement, the whole equality movement, they'll get, destroyed in the media. And so I wanted people to hear my heart first, right? Like I wanted them to hear me as a human and like, hey, we're here to get rid of obstacles so that when I got to obstacles, like, I talk about, racial bias and that kind of stuff. I talk about my experience growing up in a third world nation and being discriminated against a lot. And I talk about things that are really hard to talk about, things that are very easy to misunderstand, places where you can get labeled fast. I wanted to say that towards the end, so people heard my heart first. So they didn't just shut the book and say, oh, Nate doesn't understand me. It's like, no, I really understand you, but these things are holding you back. You might be totally, convicted about it. You might be justified in your eyes, in the world's eyes, but have they led you to a happy, fulfilling life? If the answer is yes, then keep doing it. But I don't think they have. I think they've kept you back. So if you're willing to be honest with yourself, let's crush some of that stuff and then let's move on. So that's kind of, some of the chapters. That's kind of why I put them where they're at. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, it's smart. It's even kind of like the Southwestern principle where you kind of establish rapport in a way with your reader by being like, hey, this is where I come from. This is who I am. Like I said, I'm a college student. So,
I'm a college student from Texas. Who knows why I'm in Michigan selling these books?
Beginning of the intro right there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's bad when 10 years later, after your first summer, you still remember the damn intro. Culture is important in a company. Anyway, so I love that. I love that mentality. I love the mentality of introducing yourself and kind of opening up with your heart and like what you it also gives you credibility, right? It's like, all right, well, you know something I don't. As a bookman reading, I'm like, oh yeah, I did that too. But I'm thinking if I'm a person that never sold books and I'm picking this up, I'm like, whoa, this is crazy that you're doing that. Like the whole you even talk about taking cold showers and stuff in here, which is awesome.
I gave Colderis a shout out, so Colderis will be remembered.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Wow, this is so cool. Oh, I'm glad he wrote this. I'm glad he wrote this.
I appreciate it.
I'm glad I get to talk to you about it. Yeah, fellow authors, baby, let's go.
Dude, so actually I may as well ask, since I don't get to talk to authors all the time, although I have tons of friends that are authors, but I guess for you, like looking back, like a couple questions, like, do you wish you did it sooner? Are there any regrets with the book? Are you gonna do a new one? Like, you are an author, I've read your book, good stuff, loved your shout outs to Pablo Escobar, and but yeah, tell me, like, what are your thoughts since you're an author? Regrets? Would you have done it sooner? Things you would do differently? That kind of stuff.
That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me this is wow. Switch. This is
let's
go. Podcast with Nate Hambrick.
Yeah.
Wow. Do I wish I would have done it sooner? I don't think so. I think I needed. So and this kind of goes a little bit into Southwestern too, but my first summer was great. My second summer was not as great, but still great. My third and fourth summers, awful. And it was a lot of mental, internal, emotional, psychological stuff that I was kind of letting excuses get in my way. Circumstances, all that stuff, kind of the stuff you talk, my kryptonite, right, hit me. And I needed to overcome that. And I needed that punch from life in the ego, right in the nuts of my ego, which unfortunately, that never really goes away, but you learn to deal with your ego. And I'm trying my best every day, but I'm glad that I stumbled and I fell, and I wrote the book on the trajectory of getting back up, and I think I'm still getting back up. I don't think it's a finished product, but I think if I would have wrote it earlier, my attitude in it would have been different. And so I don't think I would have liked to read it later on had I written it at a younger age. Does that make sense? Like, I don't think it would have fit as well. So no, I'm actually kind of happy with when I wrote it. I do regret though, I don't regret, but I wish I would have had more time to write it. I wrote it in 2 months from like blank page to publish on Amazon. It was 67 days or something.
Dude, right on.
And so it was, I didn't do as much of like the marketing research and stuff like that I wish I would have, or could have. And it's never too late. You can always kind of like jumpstart it again. Right. And so that's something that I think I need to revisit, but I think I'm going to do that to answer your third question, when I write the second one, which cool. I'm working on slowly but surely. So this one, I don't have as much of a rush. The reason that the first one was rushed is because when I started, it was in this like December 28th, actually, of 2020. No, 2020. And it published March 7th of 2021. So yeah, it was however that. But the reason March 7th was important is because that was the day of the anniversary of my dad coming to the United States.
Oh, cool. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
and yeah. So not many people know about that, but I mean some people do, but that was a big day for me. And so there was this huge, massive deadline that I really set for myself. And so uh yeah, that was kind of the gist behind that. But yeah, it left me room to not do as much market research as I could have. But anyway, so the second one, there's no like that big of a, I don't have a specific date that I need to finish it by. So I'm taking my time with the marketing. And so I'm going to piggyback the second one with the first one and
Which I
maybe
think
even
is a
sell
great
it
idea.
yeah, like maybe sell it as a bundle. And the second one, I actually have ideas for 3 total. So I don't know if I should even like write them all and then launch them consecutively because I know that's a really good strategy of like launch the second and then a month later the third or something like that. But there is definitely gonna be a sequel to this. When I got married this year, and I told my wife she was my sequel because this book
Okay,
ends right
cool.
right as like I became a citizen, but it doesn't really talk about much of me since. And there's a lot of stuff that's happened since I became a citizen, and so including getting married, right? And so I think that that's where that's coming. And then I also kind of want to write a book more not about my life story, but more about how this podcast grew to what it has so far. Not that it's like Joe Rogan status or anything like that, but it's if you look back to episode 1, we've come a long way. And so
Yeah.
maybe like a book on like the story of ponytails and kind of the things I've learned so far. And maybe if someone's thinking about starting a podcast, kind of maybe a couple pointers of the little things I've learned, even though there's still so much I need to learn, right? But maybe it might inspire someone to go, oh, I can maybe do that too. Because if this asshole can do it, me, and then
Dude,
then,
that's
then
life,
I can do it
man.
too.
No, I love it. Okay. Well, I will definitely I'll definitely keep my eyes open for that. I love the first one, and I didn't even know you did it that quick. I knew it was relatively fast, but 67 days, like people don't understand past the writing point, like how much goes into getting
Oh,
your book formatted, edited. People
oh,
don't understand like the distribution channels have different formats for your covers. So like here's my hardcover, here's my paperback. They're in different formats for
yeah,
Barnes and Nobles versus Amazon.
yeah.
People don't get it.
And you need different ISBNs for each of them. Like
And
it's
you
like,
need different
and it
ISBNs.
costs money. Like it's hard. It's hard. And so, and that's why I distinctly say I published it in 67 days from blank to publish, but I wrote it in 25 days. All right, so January 25th was, I think, or 26th, about a month later, was the deadline, the very latest deadline that I could get it to my editor by to make sure that by the time she got through it and the publishing process got done, that it would come out by March 7th. So I was on a hard deadline to even write it. And I did what you did, what you said, what you just mentioned at the beginning of the show, which was like, so it's 40, I think it's like 45,000 words
Okay,
or
cool.
something. And so, but I needed to write 50 because I knew through the editing process, it usually gets trimmed. You
Cut it
trim the
down.
fat.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I was like, all right, if I need to write 50,000 words and I have however many days, and then I broke it down to how many words I needed to write a day. So it turned out to be 1,000 a day, every single day, no matter what, with including 2 Saturdays where I would have to write 5,000. So days off where I'm like, all right, all I'm doing this Saturday is writing. And I mean, it was on. And I got into a rhythm, you set the habit. So the first few days it was rough, or I fall asleep on my keyboard and then wake up and like, oh, right, so, or whatever. And just working on it every single day, 1,000 words, no matter what. Some days I had 1,100 words. Some days it was like right at 1,000, but never below
Yeah.
1,000. I never had a day below. And then, some days I had an extra time, so I felt inspired, or like I had a really good moment. And what I'm talking about? You get into that flow of writing, and you're
Hmm.
like, oh, I can keep writing about this for a while. So you just like kind of let it ride. So that was enjoyable. But the transcript I think got done by January 23rd. So I was a couple days ahead of time, which was nice. But yeah, and then yeah, like you said, the writing, just writing it is hard. And with this book, it's a lot of memories, hard memories. So it was like a lot of crying, a lot of tears. It was really lethargic. But then, you know, once that's done, then it's the hard part, the other hard part. And so,
Dude, it's
yeah.
all hard.
Now I will say,
Like
my friend Amy Lester was huge and instrumental in helping me out. My
uh-huh.
roommates, Colin Appel and Steph, they just really helped me stay accountable to the writing process. Shout out to my parents who like filled me in all the gaps that I couldn't quite remember of how things happened or some of the details. There was a lot of Dr. Joel. He was my superintendent in high school. He wrote my foreword, and each of my family members each wrote like a little bit about me and what their short version of the story at the beginning of the book. So it's like the introduction.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I do remember that.
So yeah, anyway, so it was kind of it was a cool experience, and it changed my life for sure. Hardest thing I've ever done, I always say.
More than books? Dude, I think books was way harder. Like, blue light specials, having Facebook groups telling people that you're abducting children for the European sex trade. I think that was way harder than the book, but writing the book was definitely hard too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we should actually, this would be a good way to transition into Southwestern, but I still think, because the emotional toll of this, dude, was, I mean, I wrote about my grandma's passing on here. I kind of had repressed for a while, trauma, from almost getting murdered. And so it was like, this is hard in a different way. This is dark. Where, like, by the end, you dig deeper. By the end, like, you're at the bottom of your diaphragm. You're like, where the hell am I? Like, this is crazy. How much I had to pull out. So, wow. Sorry about my rant there. So people listening, I'm like, we don't care. We're here for Nate.
Who cares about your PTSD? Get to the good stuff.
Yeah, that's right. I can't even spell PTSD, man. It's my second language. And this is huge. Here's the bow for anybody out there thinking, gee, I want to write a book. How do I get a hold of Nate? First of all, don't worry about it's my second language and I wrote a book. So if I can do it in my second year, you can do it in your first. People, I think one of the biggest excuses of people is like, I'm not a good writer. No, it doesn't matter. Just write. Let your editor do that part, do the rest of the part. And so if you are listening in on this and you want to know how to write your book, Nate, how can people get a hold of you? Give us like a little bit on SPS, and if someone out there listening is wanting to follow our footsteps and wanting to share their story, how and what can they do to do this?
Yeah, so two things, and I'll do the second first, because much like yourself, like, I didn't grow up speaking English, and people don't realize that, because I my ancestry is Anglo, right? I look white. I look exactly like somebody that grew up in the United States, but I didn't. I grew up speaking Spanish. And so since I didn't have the same education, since I didn't have, the same everything that most people I talked to had, that was a place of insecurity, right? Like, I didn't feel confident in my grammar skills. It's funny, my editor, she found 3 idioms that I was just totally butchering because I thought I was understanding what people were saying here in American and just wasn't, right? So even though I sound American, like, there was a lot of insecurity around Spanish being my first language. And so don't let any excuse keep you from doing the things you want to do. So if writing a book is something that you want to do, reach out to my friends at selfpublishingschool.com and just say that I sent you. Just say Nate Hambrick sent you. We actually do a referral discount, so you can actually get some money off of your coaching. So take full advantage of that. I would actually love to talk to you as well. I'm a huge fan of book kids. I work with a ton of book kids at Self Publishing School. I've helped a ton of book kids publish their books. So let me know. I would love to talk to you. So yeah, just go to selfpublishingschool.com.
Cool. And that's self-publishingschool.com. Is that correct?
It is, but if you type in selfpublishingschool.com, it reroutes you, so you're fine.
Oh, okay, cool. So if you're listening in and you're not watching on screen, we have it up on the screen, selfpublishingschool.com. You can find a little bit more details on that. Definitely recommend for sure. That's awesome, man. Wow. Thanks for sharing. And thanks for talking about your book. This is so cool. Crush Your Kryptonite, How to Conquer Your Weakness and Unleash Your Superpower. Make sure you guys find it on Amazon. The link is in the comments below, and it's going to be in the description if you're listening in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Just scroll down. It's click on the link. It'll take you right to the book, so you can hit click buy. Oh, also, and this is huge, which I don't know why hasn't come through yet, but this is important. Please leave a review.
Yes.
Leave Nate a review on Amazon. It's super helpful as an author, for not only just the feedback that you can get from people and their thoughts, but also just helps with the algorithm, I think, on Amazon. So make sure you guys leave a review. If I will take a third try at it today if it hasn't. So yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
No, sometimes Amazon flags things, so I don't know why I won't. Yeah, but anyway, cool. Let me talk. Let me give a quick shout out to some of our friends of the podcast, and then I will. Then we can go into your book career, or not your
Let's do it.
author career, but your Southwestern Books career. So a big shout out and alumni spotlight to Pat Roach with Southwestern Real Estate. So as we all know, real estate industry is extremely lucrative, but anybody that's ever gone into real estate, especially after selling books door to door, find mediocre standards. And so it's one of those industries where I think 95% of the registered agents, they fall off within a year of even getting registered. So what Pat did with Southwestern Real Estate in the last 15 years is that they've grown it to the exact opposite. So now 95% of all their agents stay with the company, and they all make, and end up making six figures after their training and after they kind of get their head started, their head start there. So it's pretty easy barrier. It's a high barrier to entry, but with them, there's a lot really good coaching culture, and he's kind of made it 99% drama free. So take all the bullshit from Southwestern's negative non-perfectionist parts and take all the good parts, put it into real estate, and that's what Pat has built. It's one of the coolest opportunities that we have and that we talk about on our show. So they're experts on the field, and they have a lot more warmer and reliable sales. So real estate's been kind of crazy lately, but they are doing a great job. Reach out to us so you can get in touch with Pat. If you sold books, you get a guaranteed interview with them. So make sure to let us know if you're interested. Second, Thought Leader is an online education company as well. I want to give a shout out to Dylan Barr. Actually, Nate, you know Dylan. He's the
I
funniest
love Dylan. He's quoted in my book. He's one of my top favorite people. Dylan is awesome.
dude. Dylan is. I mean, I was so glad when he joined our jockey teams are our partners, but I'm glad when he joined our jockey team because I'm like, man, just his energy in a meeting or in just like anywhere is so affectionate, like so infectious that you gotta like be. You love surrender yourself with Dylan. Dylan is awesome. Love you, buddy. They've helped 400. It's kind of similar to SPS, but they've helped people do TED Talks. And so they've helped over 400 people land successful TED Talks, and they need your help. So they partner with Ponytails exclusively. They're looking for alumni of Southwestern to join their team, and they have openings for two roles. One is their SDR role, which is basically the entry level role, and you're calling warm leads that have expressed interest in working with Thought Leader. You qualify the lead and set them up for an enrollment advisor. Your expected earnings are between 50 to 75,000 per year, and it's a good progression path for top performers to get into the enrollment advisor role. Which now, if you have more experience and you want to go into not the entry level, but you have a little bit more credential, you can get into that role. As that again, it's an enrollment advisor. You're speaking to genuinely some of the most interesting people in the world who are like super awesome and trying to talk and have their TEDx talk. You wake up every morning and your calendar is pre-filled with qualified applicants, and your earnings on that role are about 130 to 200,000. Now it's pretty high standards in that role, which is why they're looking for book people specifically. But for the right person, it could be pretty good opportunity, maybe the opportunity of a lifetime. So if you're interested, Dylan Barr, who you want to reach out to, Thought Leader's head of sales and client experience. He's also, of course, a book guy, and you can email him at DB, that's Dylan Barr, so just DB at thought-leader.com. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And last but not least, I want to give it a shout out to Cardinal again. We love working with Cardinal, and this is the part where we like to recognize some of their top agents of the last week. So they had 6 out of 42 of their agents gross 10K in profit. The top spots go to Isaac McConkey and his young Padawan non-bookman Michael K, who combined for an average of 20K in last and only working 35 hours for a week. So that's kind of cool. The other 4 over 10K were non-bookmen. Jeremy Checkets. Come on, book guys. What are we doing? Lucas Holland, Zach Fox, plus 8 summer bookman, who is now 9 weeks in a row of over 10,000 in gross profit. He wanted to call out the Southwestern alum at Cardinal and let him know to step it up, guys. Come on. I'm also pissed off at you. Come on. How are you getting beat by non-book people? Every sales organization has superstars, but it's most impressive about Cardinal is that from a percentage standpoint, the majority of the organization would be well above average in any final expense group. And that's, what they're the most proud of. So they had 20 people gross over 5K and 33 out of the 42 gross over 3K in a week, which is not bad. Again, if those numbers sound appealing to you guys and a former bookman or woman and you're looking for something new or just unhappy with what you're doing right now, Cardinal is hiring. And of course, there's that $500 referral bonus that goes out to you guys for, getting someone hired. So that's pretty sweet. All right, Nate, you ready? Thank you for listening. Isn't that cool? All of our partners are book people. Like, we wanted to keep it that way.
And I don't even know if you knew this, but I worked for Cardinal and they are awesome. So I did 5 years in insurance, year and a half of which was with Cardinal. And I only worked like 15 to 20 hours a week and still made great money. I still get probably 12 different paychecks a month from the work I did with Cardinal Senior Benefits. And I haven't worked there for 2 years. So even though I don't work there, huge fan. So if you're looking to make a ton of money and work with good people, definitely recommend Cardinal.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Pedro Vega is super sweet to work with, and he was on the show.
Love that
He's
guy.
awesome. He's so
Yeah.
cool. Man of God for sure. Cool. So let me wind the clocks back. 2014. You're chilling in college in Texas, and someone comes up to you. How did you hear about this crazy roller coaster that is the Southwestern Advantage?
Yeah, so fun fact, I started college a little bit earlier. So I was enrolled in college at 15. I was finishing up my second degree, and one of my roommates and friends, Daniel Mueller, approached me about a company called Southwest, and he didn't even know the name of Southwestern. He told me about this company called Southwest, but it wasn't the airline, and I should definitely do it. And he told me what it was. He's like, yeah, it's awesome. What you're going to do is grab a bag of books and knock on 5,000 strangers' doors and sell them books. And I said, this sounds awful. And then, a week and a half later, I was signed up, and 4 weeks later, I was in Michigan selling books door to door. And so I'm so thankful for him. Really, I was recruited under Hannah Franzen. So I don't know if you know Hannah. She's awesome. She's one of those people that I hope I'm friends with forever. But Hannah Franzen was technically the one that recruited me, and I lived with her brother, Josh Franzen, who's also a phenomenal guy. So that's kind of how I got, brought into it. And the reason I did it is because out of my second degree, I was going to do a year of Bible college. And so I needed to make some money. So that's why I ended up working with them.
Okay, so let me dig into this because I've asked this multiple times. People who listen to regularly, they're probably like, all right, here comes this question. But everybody has like a why, like money or travel, right? But inside, I always think there's something else that kind of calls you in.
100%.
What do you think that was for you?
Yeah. So I know you had Amberly on the show a week or two ago, whatever it was. So Ben Kessler was the guy running the meeting. And so I walked in and he showed a whole bunch of pictures of, different people that he worked with. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but what he communicated to the group was like, if you're a badass and you've been surrounding yourself with average, like come work with badasses. We're all badasses. We don't let anybody in that's not a badass. And if you're one of us, come hang. That's basically what I got from it. And I remember, like I said, like the Crush Your Kryptonite fame, like this was before books. And I constantly felt that of like, I was always at the top. And even though it's great feeling like you're at the top, I wanted other people at the top to cheer me on. And I didn't have a support network. And so, yes, I did it to make a little bit of money, but you're right. That's not why I sold books, right? There are tons of different ways to make money. Funny story. What I was going to do instead of that was shear sheep because they were going to pay me like $20,000 to $25,000 for 2.5 months to get in a sweaty van and shear sheep. And so glad I sold books.
That's the best. That's the best alternate job. Like what I would have done. We should keep asking this. What would you have done instead? That's hilarious. That's sheep, baby. That's
and the truth is, I would have made more money shearing sheep than selling books, right? Like my take home would have been like 20 to 25,000 after expenses versus books. I didn't make quite that much, but the skills I learned have made me way more than I would have made just taking a razor to sheep, right? And so, that's a life lesson for you, right? The greatest investment you can give yourself is the investment of knowledge, right? And tenacity, because this is worth way more than a paycheck. Like I would take this over millions of dollars any day because I know I can make millions of dollars with this. But anyway, so that's kind of how I, got in there. I wanted to be surrounded with a whole bunch of badasses. And then Virgie Sanford, my DSM, she convinced me to do a second summer, which I was not going to do. Like I was 100% opposed to it. I wasn't going to do it because I was already old. I had already graduated twice. I was like, this is great. Like, I wish I'd heard about this 4 years ago. I would have done it 4 summers, but I'm old. It's time to get a big boy job. And she said, Nate, look at how much you've grown. Okay. You're now a very good salesperson. I was one of the top salespeople my first year. But you know nothing about people. You know nothing about recruiting. You know nothing about empathy. You should come do this again. And I'm really glad she was honestly very forceful. And I'm thankful for that. Like I don't look back at that and she was very forceful with me. She was like, Nate, you're being an idiot. She literally said that. She said, Nate, you are being an idiot. You need to come back. And I'm glad I did.
That's wild. No, why? What? Let's go. I'm going to dig into this first summer experience because I think it's always fun to hear people's first summers. It's always
Sure.
sometimes it's similar stories, but it's every person's so different and their experience is so different that it's worth talking about. Sales school. What do you remember? Because that first sales school, man, it's as Bill Zizzy put it, it's like a wet St. Bernard hitting you in the face. Like, what was that like?
Dude, it was nuts. I mean, I had keep in mind I got recruited 4 weeks before sales school, so I barely knew anything. I'm trying to think. I don't know that I have a ton of like life-changing moments at sales school. I definitely remember it. Like I remember everyone who was there, or at least a lot of the people who were there. I remember, kind of the emotional roller coaster that they take you through on purpose, very intentionally to get you ready. I remember, us all grabbing that little tweed bracelet or whatever it was and wrapping it around here and saying, I am a part of this cult, even if I burn my legs off and I am on crutches. And if Satan spawns a youngling and if my car explodes, I'm going to be here forever. Like I remember all of that. But yeah, that was the beginning of great things. But I'll tell you what I really remember. I remember my first day on the book field, like nothing else. And I remember like coming home and it's dark. And I went down into our basement at our host family. And my roommate, Josh Franja, was there. I forget what he was doing, making a sandwich or something. And the look that we had in each other's eyes, we were like, yeah, we did that. It was like, I can't even explain it. Like we knew that we had committed to 3 months of this, right? And day one, we were like, oh, brother, we are in for something, And so I don't think I'll ever remember that. I don't think I'll ever forget that feeling. And honestly, like that feeling and even that stupid little bracelet, and all the crazy things they somehow trick you into and convince you into agreeing to, like that's what kept me going. And it's kind of nuts, but I did not have, even though I was, one of their superstars, it all happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So I might fudge the numbers a little bit, but basically I made $0 profit for 8 or 9 weeks. Like I was barely just paying the bills. And then in the last 4 weeks, I made like 12 grand.
What? That is okay. Hold on. Let me dig into this because I had a very opposite experience. So how do you keep going? How did you decide not? Because most people quit if they haven't made any money by week 5, let alone 9. How did you? Was there ever a moment where you were like, and that quote by Dylan, why am I doing this? Is what you asked right before you quit something. How did you overcome that? And how did you end up staying?
If you ask a therapist, I have daddy issues or mommy issues, but if you ask a champion, I just never gave up. Like failure was not an option. Like I was going to be there no matter what. I had basically sworn to be there. And so I was going to be there. That's it. And so, if it's okay, I'd like to share like the switch that happened in my mind that went from selling almost nothing to selling everything.
Yes, please.
Going back to Ben Kessler. So Ben came out and I said, Ben, I don't know how to work my turf. Your turf's different. I'm tired of following people. I need you to come to my turf for one day and just follow me and let me know what you think. Can you please do this? And even though he probably shouldn't have, Ben sacrificed a whole day to come follow me in my turf, or half a day, whatever it was. And he followed me for a while and he said, okay, Nate, like if you could get rid of all the rules, like all the things we told you, 30 demos, all the stuff, if you could just throw the rule book out, how would you sell bucks? And I told him a couple things. I told him like, hey, I feel really dishonest demoing a grandma that can't buy, right? I feel really weird about this, and whatever it was. And I just want to go have fun. And so he said, okay, do that. And so that's what we did. And so I went out there and, I was, younger and just graduating college. So I was a little bit, arrogant and way over the top. And so I just started teasing people, like trying to be lighthearted. I'm sure some of the jokes didn't land, but I just started making fun of people on the book field and just teasing them and having a blast, like laughing with people. And once I started laughing with people, people started liking me. And then what do you know? People started buying. And, it was kind of one of those things where I had to make up for lost time. So I just sold the entire package every single time. It was either the entire package or bust. And then I started hitting, 100 units in a day type deal fairly consistently. And you do 100 units in a day consistently, like you start making money really fast. And then you look up and you're like, huh, dang, I actually have quite a bit of money, even though it was about the money, it wasn't about the money, but I definitely made up for lost time. And so that's part of the reason I probably, was able to come back, is because I believed that it was possible. Because I knew if I just did what I did the last 3 weeks for an entire summer, like I'm going to be really, really profitable.
Dude, that is awesome. That's such a key there to like have fun with people and being able to, it seems to be a common theme. I think the biggest theme that we've heard about on the show specifically, there's been like, don't give up, all the blah, 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 all the really good ones, really good gold nuggets. But it's the biggest one is one kind of you just mentioned, which is take what you're doing seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And that really seems to be a huge factor or a huge influence of people who are going to crush it at this, or really any kind of sales or maybe even life, but just learning to laugh with people and connecting with them as a human being. And then
Yep.
understanding that whatever happens is going to happen. But because you genuinely have an interest in just making a connection and having fun, there's this like natural way that things kind of tend to go your way, and it's fine. It's hard to explain to someone who hasn't really experienced that. But once you experience it, especially consistently, you're like, this is cool. I would say Dylan's probably a master at this. When he talks to anybody, he just has this like way of making them laugh and laughing at himself and just being funny. And so, that's kind of like, it makes sense that you found that too. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. What was the experience of recruiting like the second summer? Like, was it any different? And what did you learn through that aspect of the experience?
I learned what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. So everything can be developed. But if we're just talking about raw talent at that point, I wasn't naturally a good salesperson. I figured it out, but I wasn't naturally a good salesperson. As a recruiter, I was naturally good at recruiting, but not quite as good at leading people. So with recruiting, like I kind of just crushed it right out of the gates. I, kind of had this vibe of like, hey, I'm awesome. Like you should come work with me. And because I, believed that I, was doing something important, like people wanted to follow. And so my team kind of came together fairly easy. Most of them weren't friends, but just like that unshakable confidence, like it was super helpful. And so I recruited a team fairly easily. Now, full disclosure, my team, even though they technically were the top team, not all of them did super well. They all stayed though. And that's something that, is really cool. Like I was the only team in Dynasty and one of the only teams in Southwestern period to have 100% retention rate. So people actually believed in me and believed they should be there. But the thing that I struggled with was, helping people that hadn't held themselves to a high standard sell a lot of books. And so I did have some failures, and so coming out of that, I was like, okay, well, I know I'm really good at recruiting. I think the next thing I need to do is I need to get really good at training. And so I transitioned from Southwestern to Family Heritage mainly for the recruiting. And I recruited a ton of people that failed. And so it was a big learning process. Like I recruited some of the best failures,
Nice.
and just learning and, learning and growing and being willing to say, okay, I suck at this. Like, let's get better at this. And so that's one of the reasons in my current position, like I don't do recruiting anymore. I just, I sell, I talk to people about their books because I'm really good at it, and so I want to focus on my strengths. And so the things that I'm working on, finance, investments, lots of real estate, and sales. Those are the things I'm really, really good at. And here pretty soon, like I'm going to start adding new things on. Now I'm getting really good at ads, and so I want to add, thing by thing, I'm going to add to my tool belt.
That's sweet. You have a very disciplined mentality. It's super cool to witness, like, hey, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, this is what makes sense. Do this, and then you do the crap out of it, and it works. Shocker. you kind
No,
of take the emotion
so
out of it. I mean,
surprising.
it's emotionally driven goals, but like you do such a good job of like taking your emotions out of it and just understanding this is what needs to be done and I need to do it. And
Yeah.
so then you go do it. And it sounds so, I mean, it's easier said than done for, people listening in. It's like, oh, you can't do that yet. Because it's hard. It's hard to do what you're doing. I think that's something else you're really good at that you didn't give yourself credit for, but I'm willing to shower you with praise on that. Good stuff, brother.
Well,
You are
thank you, man. I
awesome.
appreciate it. Make me feel
One,
good.
yes, sir. One more thing I want to ask you about, and then we can go into ponytails. Tell me about your music career, because you
Yeah.
in the book I wrote, in your book I read that you also published an album, and maybe tell me about how that came along, and then the follow-up question, I'll ask it again if you forget, but how is writing a book and writing an album similar or different? But let's go.
Yeah,
Let's go to how did you get started with music?
they're different. So music has always been my thing. So I went to growing up in Honduras. I went to a symphonic academy. So basically, I learned how to play classical music at a high level. And so
Wow.
I did music training Monday through Friday, and then 4 hours on Saturday, plus rehearsed 2 to 4 hours a day. And I did that for years. So we're talking roughly 30 to 40 hours of music a week, something like that, for many, many years. When I did move to the US, then I started doing like the worship band, that kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, I don't know my total hour count, probably, 15, 16,000 hours worth of music. It's a ridiculous number. And so, got competent there and did the whole rock band for a while. But the key, going back to what we are talking about earlier, like you have to add either people to your group of influence, or you have to add skills. And so even though I had a lot of great music, I did not understand marketing at all. And I had this completely, false belief that if I created the best music, I was going to win as a musician. And then I'm simultaneously frustrated by the Britney Spears of the world that are crushing it. And it's the same thing in life everywhere, right? Like as a salesperson, you win, you crush it, you make things happen. And then there's somebody out there that, makes a tenth of the income you do, that's complaining about how you just got lucky. And you're like, well, it wasn't luck. I followed this process and I deserve the income I have because I'm creating value this way. So if you want to do that, just follow this process and then you'll probably get there. And it seems so logical from that standpoint. But as a musician, I always focused on the music and neglected the fact that nobody knew who I was, And so even though I was performing in front of, about 1,000 people a week at church, 1,000 people is not enough to build a music career. Like going back to my book, 40 to 45,000 impressions a day. Like you have to get to a much bigger scale. And so focusing on the music itself was a losing strategy. And unfortunately, I didn't have somebody to teach me earlier. Like if I had a time machine, I'd go back and tell my 16 and 17-year-old self, like, your music's good enough, figure out how to market. And if I had done that, I feel pretty confident I could have been a professional musician. And I actually do have some friends that did make it, that are professional musicians. One of my friends has a TV show on ABC and has for the last 4 years, and they learned the marketing side. I didn't, and there's nobody to blame but me. I stuck to my guns in the wrong way, and I lost. Shocker. So I learned from my mistakes, and I don't do that anymore. So if you want to be Britney Spears, do what she did. Find somebody to market the crap out of your music, and if you do, you'll probably win. So anyway, there's my little soapbox there.
That's huge. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. I love that you said all that. I have a brother who needs to hear that.
Dude, send them my way, man. You've got my number.
Yes, sir. I will. I
So,
most certainly
as
will.
far as music's concerned, I actually have experience in a lot of different kinds of music. So, I've ghostwritten worship albums. So, I did a worship album for Valley Creek Church, did a song on there. I did I ghostwrote an entire music album for Antioch. So I've done a lot of worship songs there, and then I've done some rap music. There's an artist named Ryan Thomas that I wrote a bunch of rap songs for. My own artist band number was I said band number, which it is. I had a solo project by the name of 287, so it's just a number. So did a lot of electronic music there. Sarah Maddock did a ton of her stuff, and so definitely have
Love Sarah.
been a part of successful stuff. But it was never my name out there. And so, once again, if I had a time machine, I'd be a professional musician at this point. But hopefully that answers that question. So before I go into the parallels between all that, any questions on that?
Dude, that was awesome. So, before you jump into that, where can people find your album, and like how can they maybe listen to some of that, or like maybe someone to listen is in music and they want to use your expertise to have ghostwriting? Do you still do that? Is that a thing that people can still find you for?
It's not something that I still do, mainly because my hourly rate is so high in sales. It's a waste of my time. And so, I never thought I'd get to that place where I'm turning down music jobs. Like I've had people a couple of weeks ago that asked me to do some music for their company, and I told them no, just because my hourly rate has progressively increased and graduated to another levels. But if you want to find my music, I'm pretty easy to find. If you type in Nate Hambrick in Spotify or YouTube, you'll see a couple songs. Sarah Maddock, our videos on YouTube each have well over 100,000, 150,000 views on them. Ryan Thomas, you can find everywhere: YouTube, Spotify, Apple. So all those artists are very easy to find if you want to look them up.
Heck yeah, that is super awesome. Sweet. And if you're listening in, feel free. By the way, the hourly rate, when you said too high, you put quotations up, and it's important to highlight that because I saw it and people watching saw it, but if you're listening, they might not have seen the quotations.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, the air quotes, because it's not like it's not worth my time. Like I love music. You can see I have 3 instruments right behind me. But from a money making standpoint, it's not worth it. Now I love it as a hobby, but I'm not going to have somebody hire me to do a job in music that I don't really want to do because they won't pay me what I'm worth in a different field.
Yeah, that makes sentence. And you're really good at that other field as well. So that makes complete sense. So, and then, then let me ask you about that. Writing a book, writing an album, similarities, differences, what did you learn about the comparing, contrasting those?
Well, I mean, music's different in that the main thing that creates a song people like is going to be the melody. It's not necessarily the words. And we know this because just listen to top 40s. It's all about, the same stuff, which is great. If you have a really good, really good melody, you somehow figure out how to make it edgy, or there has to be something unique about it while still being exactly the same as everybody else. So the best songs have something unique and something that is 100% generic you've heard in 10,000 songs. That's kind of like the winning combination. But it's not really focused on the words per se. Like, when was the last time you listened to a top 40 song that was super deep? I mean, they are out there, but they're very rare. So it was different in that sense that a book is focused entirely on the content and the words. But there are some principles, right? Like one of the things that I continuously reminded myself about this book is that this book is not about me. Now, my face might be on the back. You might be able to read about me there, but this book isn't about me. It's about my end reader. So if I'm not providing something to my reader that they want, that's a non-starter, right? So many authors, they get caught up in, well, I don't want to do that because I really like. And you're like, well, it doesn't matter what you like. If you want to write a book for yourself, that's fine, right? But if you actually want to help people, you have to write content that people actually want, that they can use. Like my book had to be usable. People had to be able to read it and have takeaways that improve their life. Otherwise, nobody's going to share the book. And I failed.
Dude, we take clips from episodes and put it on a reel on Instagram of like something like fire that the guest said. This is one of those where it's like, we have like 7 or 8 at this point to pick from.
Let's go.
So you've
Let's
just been dropping just
go.
some bombs of wisdom. So that's pretty awesome. That is such a cool like thought on that. So I want to commend you for your talents and for your ability to express the process that you should write a book on that. Because you're
Dude,
so good at talking about processes and how to like, I'd read that.
So the next book I want to write, I don't know that this is the most marketable book, but my heart wants to write a book on leverage. So one of the things that I've learned now that I've graduated from hanging out with people that, make 60 to 80,000 a year, to people that make 200,000 a year, to people that make millions a year, is the people at the very top, they understand leverage. Financial leverage, they understand time leverage, they understand attitude and not emotional leverage in that they're leveraging someone else's emotions, but they understand their limits and how to get more out of it. So one of the things that I want to write, and I don't know if I'll do this because I'm trying to figure out how to communicate that well so people will buy the book, but I'm really passionate about leverage. And that's one of the things I talk about in the book, that one of my biggest takeaways from, hanging out with people that make $800 to $1,200 an hour is they all do a few things, right? They find their hourly rate. And if there's something that they do in their life, like cooking, like cleaning, like selling stuff on Craigslist, like anything that costs less than their hourly rate, they instantly hire it out so that they only focus on things that are their maximum potential. And so that's how you get to making $800 an hour or $1,000 an hour, is you only do tasks that people will pay you 1,000 hours to do, right? And so I always assumed, very incorrectly, that rich people hired out the lower tasks because they were rich. And what I didn't understand is the way they got rich was by hiring out those tasks, right? It's the chicken and the egg thing. I thought you got rich first and then you hired out tasks. That's not how it works. You hire out the tasks so you can get to the place where you're rich. Does that make sense?
Dude, 100%. That was a part about your book that I read that I would like, it really like, honestly, I was like, oh man, how do I apply this? Because yes. The answer is yes. It makes 100% sense. You even wrote down the math where it was something like, kind of like what you just said, like if it costs, so much so to hire these people, like you talked about a cooking person, that you have someone that like if I had someone that come in and cook my meals, buy my groceries, and you paid them $200 an hour, right? But you make $500 an hour. And for that hour that you have to go spend getting groceries, and then another hour to cook the food, is $1,000 that you're losing. So really you're a net 800 up because you hired someone to make that food for you. Also, they cook all the time, which means their food is probably better than whatever you cook. So besides that added bonus, that's huge. And it blew my mind. So then I was like, because I hadn't really heard of that concept outside of your book. Honestly, I'm glad you brought this up, because it reminded me, I'm like, yeah, that is kind of the biggest like tangible takeaway. There's a lot of them, but for me personally, that was the one that I was just like, oh, that I can start doing that, because it might sound really like cocky to say this, but I'm getting to the point with the show where it's like it's starting to pay decently, and so then it's like, oh, but if I take this time to whatever do laundry, right? It's like, oh man, or I can find somebody. I found out there's a service in Portland that if you pay $50 or whatever per hour, I think they will come to your house, pick up your laundry, wash it, and then bring it back folded. And I'm like, what am I not doing that for? Like literally, when I read that, I just started like in my head making a list of all the things. I'm like, what am I not getting paid? What I'm getting paid at the podcast? And it's not like I'm making millions here, no, but it's enough that it makes me go, I need to outsource some of this, and it's genius. If people listening to this, that is such a smart move that and you break it down in the book. So I definitely recommend buying the book, reading it, leaving a review, and then underlining this section. I'm trying to. You wrote about it in here, and I love.
I don't know where it is, honestly, but the math, and I might get the numbers off slightly, but basically what I figured out is hiring out a cook. If you just look at the hourly rate, it makes me $2,000 a month. So if all I did was hire a cook, that increases my income. Let's say, and I'm making more than this, but let's say I was making 100K. that increases me from 100K to 124K. Like,
Mm-hmm.
now imagine what you can do with that extra spread. Because remember, life is a game of margins, right? So let's say you're making $60,000 a year and your baseline expenses are 55,000. Your margin is only 5K, right? You can do nothing, right? But
Right.
if you just go from 60K to 80K, even though technically it's only a 30% increase, well, you've gone from 5,000 of margin to, what is that? $25,000 margin.
Yeah.
So you have 5x your margin, right? You can now take that money and you can put it towards hiring out other things to increase your margin again. And so, it's really a game of margins is really what you're looking for. And so even though I can confidently say my cook makes me 24K a year, she's actually making me a lot more than 24,000,
Yes.
because I'm taking that same emotional and physical energy and I'm putting it towards perfecting my craft, right? I'm listening to books, right? Right now I'm reading a book called $100 Million Offers. It's completely blowing my mind. And that time that I spent on that book, I'm implementing that into my job, which improves my hourly rate, right? And so these things keep feeding into themselves. And so, unless something horrible happens, I'm just going to keep doing that forever and never stop doing that.
Well, and I found it. It's on page 67, 8. It's
Okay.
chapter 5, master your priorities and potential value of time. And which is actually coincidentally, remember when you asked me where I was when it's this page right here. It's a page. It's a picture of the page I sent you that I was like, this is where I'm at right now.
So good.
But yeah, you write the math there. And yes, that's it. And to even further highlight this point, you know what ends up actually happening with me? I'm just talking, and people hopefully can relate to this that are listening. But like, if I don't have time to eat, right? Because I need to go like have meetings and back to back record an episode or whatever. What I'll probably end up doing is go get something to eat, like out a takeout, right? Or I get something delivered, which is more expensive. And then that sometimes starts turning into a habit, because then it's like I'm always busy. I'm too busy to cook, right? There's not enough time to cook and eat, but enough time to eat, so I might as well just have it ordered. And if you do that enough, it's actually probably more expensive, or if not, at the very least, the same that you would pay if you just paid someone to cook for you. The meals would be healthier because it's home cooked meals, right? They're, and so huge insight on that. I really appreciated that you wrote that in. I think that's really cool that you shared, because honestly, I'm gonna sit down and with my wife and really just kind of write down where we can afford to make these like differences, because it's like time is money, right? That's a real thing. And in Southwestern, books equal money, but in life, time equals money. And it's important to really understand the value of that time versus what you can be spending it with what you're producing. So,
dude, I'm
very
so
cool.
encouraged that you took away some gold nuggets. And that was life-changing for me when I figured that out. Total game changer. So I'm hoping it'll have a positive impact in your life as well.
Heck yeah. I mean, I still love cooking, so I'm probably still going to cook, but that's not the point. The point is just like, it's about the efficiency and the prioritization of time and where you put it. Heck yeah. So cool. Very cool, sir. Very cool, sir. All right. Let's might be time to move into the ponytails. Does that sound okay?
Let's go. I'm excited.
All right, brother. Well, I'm gonna do one last shout out to a couple more partners, and then we can wrap this one up in with some cool stories. I know the story you're gonna tell, so I'm excited for it. Do you remember the story you're telling?
I do. Yeah. It's actually in the first main chapter past the introduction. So chapter 1 of my book, I share this story.
Yes, sir. Super excited for this one. A quick shout out to our European friends at V Designly. So we have our website. It is launched. There's a soft launch. Tweaks are still being made, but overall, you guys can go and head there and kind of check it out. There's newsletters that you can sign up for. So we're gonna have a weekly newsletter. It could be a video. It could be a newsletter. It's gonna be called the Colt, COLT, because everything in the Ponytails podcast is horse themed, and the newsletter is called the Colt, because I think that's pretty funny. And so, but I just wanted to thank Oscar and Oliver. They're the masterminds behind the website. So if you own a business and you want to have an effective presence online, at the podcast, obviously we know that we have a website, but nowadays, if you don't have a website for your business, you're kind of messing up a lot of stuff. Now, it can get expensive to have a web developer do this for you, anywhere from 25 to 50,000 if it's a complicated one. But you can do it through Redesignly because they're in Estonia, so their prices are not as high for just as good of quality. Plus, if you're a book person, they work with you pretty well. So make sure you reach out to us. We'll put you in touch with them. They design our website. If you like what you see on ours, guys, Redesignly is the way to go. So we'll get you enrolled with them. Shout out to Julio Hernandez and Light Energy, and of course Nick Taverdi. Love Nick. But they're doing with solar what Southwestern Real Estate's doing to real estate. So they're growing fast and they're crushing it. The crazy thing about solar is if you make a sale every other week, you're gonna make six figures. Isn't that crazy? Solar's kind of the wild west right now. But if you have a passion for the planet, a desire to earn pretty good money, and you want to work with someone like Nick, you can join him and Julio in their efforts to grow Enlight Energy. They are growing pretty quickly as well. And so you are helping people save money. Instead, when you do solar, you're not really adding an extra bill. You're actually replacing the increasing electric costs. John Oliver had a really good bit on his show about how crazy in the monopoly that is electric companies all over the country, because they're usually the only one and they can kind of control the prices as they wish, especially now with inflation. So it's a good time to do that and help people save money. So there's a good cause for the planet, for people's pockets, and for your own. So reach out to us. And then one last shout out to Cardinal. I know we mentioned them, but and Nate, you worked with them, so you know this. But yeah, of course, the 6 agents, the gross over 10K just last week. So make sure you guys reach out. Top spots with Isaac McConkey and of course Michael K. You said it yourself. The best is you work 15 to 20, sometimes 35 hours at most, working really smart with warm leads so that you can make a pretty good income on it. I mean, if you're in the bottom half of the feeders, you're making 3K a week, which not bad. So reach out to us if those numbers sound good to you, and if you want to be below their average, which is still making quite a bit of money, although book people are usually pretty competitive. So if you want to be towards the top echelon of those people making 10K, we'll get you in touch with Quentin. Again, a couple people have already been in the pipeline, and one of them is already being hired. So more information on that later. And then the last bit of information is Bizzler. Sign up for Bizzler. Link below. Click on the link below and join us at Bizzler. Nate, of course, you're invited. Bring your wife. And if you want to be cool, join us at the Bizzler trip, August 15th through the 19th. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can come out and just kind of hang out with a bunch of other alumni and have a good time. So on that note, let's go over to the ponytails. Let us set the scene. Where are we? What happens? Your mic, sir.
Yeah, so this story, honestly, my book will probably do it better justice, but just offhand, really one of the more life-changing ponies, life-changing events from a career standpoint happened, I want to say end of month 1, beginning of month 2, whenever I left Southwestern, right? Because you do Southwestern, you get all hyped up, you feel like you can conquer the world, but those first few months are going to dictate whether you go back to living your life before you were a book kid or whether you choose to implement those strategies to get more out of life. And so really just to set the scene. So I started with Family Heritage. So I was selling business to business. And my very first week, I actually sold a ton. Like I went out straight out of the gates. I was like number 1 week 1, like I think I even broke a record, or if I didn't, I was close to my very first week, having never sold insurance before, and, got a little confident. And then slowly but surely, week 2 was a little bit less, 3, 4. And then by the end of like week 4, I guess it was probably week 6, I was selling almost nothing, like enough to pay the bills, but just like getting my teeth kicked in. And I was in my head. I was falling victim to the car trapped. And for those of you who are just listening to it, I did use air quotes. And basically what I was doing is I was allowing myself to overthink it. And so in between businesses, I would think to myself, okay, who's the perfect referral name I should use for this business? And then I would drive around, and then I was just getting in my own head, and it was crushing my confidence. And so I took the principles that I learned in self-publishing school, and I crushed my kryptonite. So one of the metaphors that I use in the book is I gave myself a deal I couldn't refuse. So if you've ever seen The Godfather, one of the things they do in an unkind way is if they want somebody to do something, they give them a deal they can't refuse. Like, do this or I'll murder your entire family, is kind of how the people in The Godfather do it. So I took that same concept with my business, with my job, because it was a life or death situation. Like, I choose to see it that way. So I told myself, okay, Nate, you are going to go from business to business to business and talk to people. And if you ever sit in your car for more than 5 to 10 minutes, you have to pay fellow bookman Josh Stracco. Shout out to Josh. He's awesome. You have to pay him $500 per infraction. So in any given day, I could pay Josh 10 times. That's $5,000. And at that point, I wasn't making jack squat because I was in my head. So I didn't have $5,000 to pay Josh. And so that deal I couldn't refuse forced me to do the thing I needed to, which is to get out of my head and go have fun with people. And so my pony was, I told Josh, hey, I'm paying you $500 if I ever get in my head, if I ever stay in my car for more than 5 to 10 minutes. And so there was a point in my day, the very next day, it was a Tuesday, I think, I was tempted to fall into those negative habits, but I forced myself into the next business. I ended up talking to a gentleman. He owned a coffee shop, super cool guy. We hit it off. We were talking. I was like, this isn't so bad. And I found out he ran the business with his wife. And so I was like, hey, go ahead and get your wife, because I wanted to pitch them. And she comes out in a horrible mood and instantly starts yelling at me in front of her own clientele. I had done nothing. I had said nothing, but she was just in a terrible mood. And so because I built positive momentum, I was able to handle it. If I had been in my head, I would have done this thing, right? Like a scared dog, and I would have walked out. But because I built confidence the entire day, never let myself get in my head, I was able to be calm about it. And I literally just was like, whoa. And then I was like, hey, the only reason I'm here is because your friends told me to be here. Would it be okay if I just gave you a quick look? And I think it was 10 minutes later, I walked out with $1,000 in revenue. Like, it was the quickest sale ever. And so like, that was a turning point for my insurance career, right? Because $1,000 in revenue in that business, it was 40% plus renewals. So $400 in my pocket then, plus lifetime of renewals. I'm still getting paid today based on that thing that happened 7 years ago. So this was 7 years ago. I'm still getting paid from that one decision. And what happened was I closed that person. I felt like a badass. And so I kept closing people. And the very next day or 2 days later, I closed that city's police department. And then I closed all the other 3 cities' police departments. And then I wrote up a ton of revenue. And then I was like at the very top of the business, crushing it because of that one choice to give myself an offer I couldn't refuse. And so that was my pony. And so technically, right, that one little sale, like, it's $400, like, whoop-de-doo. But it wasn't about the $400. It was about the hundreds of thousands of dollars that came because of that one teeny tiny little sale, that little victory that kept me going.
Woo! And that right there is a big old pony.
Does that meet your standards for ponytails?
Dude, there are no standards. Everybody's experience, is their own, and our job is just to give them the mic to share it, and just to be thankful that this exists and that there's a platform out there and enough people who will care about it and listen to it, that hopefully even one person listening to this listens to that, if not a lot of people, and really like impacts them. But to me, I never get tired of hearing, successful stories. It's inspiring to me alone. So I'm sure it does that for a lot of our listeners, if not all of them. So there are no standards, but I'm just glad that you are vulnerable enough to share, the hard moments. And that's really awesome, both here on the show and on your book, in your book, and then many books to come, hopefully. Heck yeah, dude.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Wow. What a ride. Woohoo. We have arrived at the Ponytails podcast end of an episode. And one more time, I want to give you a shout out. I want to praise you for your vulnerability, your ability to open up and share some of your insights, the way that you process things and the way that you talk about how you do things is it makes it so that it's understandable, and makes it so that it's inspiring, because you're like, man, I can do that too. And so your humility and your ability to communicate your processes make for inspiring content, my man. So thank you so much for being on the show. I hope you had fun. Was it all right?
Oh, this has been a blast. Like I said, I've been wanting to be on this podcast for probably 1.5 years, and we finally made it happen. So, thank you for having me, man. This has been a blast.
Let's go. Such a cool time. Again, one more time, guys, if you're just tuning in, you didn't get the chance to listen to the beginning of the show, or if you fast forwarded for whatever reason, Crush Your Kryptonite, How to Conquer Your Weakness, and Unleash Your Superpower by Nate Hambrick. That's on Amazon. You can click on the number on the pinned comment below, also in the description below, to go purchase it. If you purchase it, read it. If you read it, leave a review. If you leave a review, share it with a friend. It goes a long way as authors. I promise you that. Again, make sure you go check it out. And again, you can go find Nate's music. If you want to go find Nate music, Nate Hambrick, go find it on Spotify. He is out there. And if you want to write a book, reach out to him. He will coach you or lead you to the right people. You can also just go to selfpublishingschool.com and mention that you were referred there by Nate. They will give you a discount. Awesome stuff, guys. Thank you so much, brother. Episode 121 is coming to an end here. We're going to be going into June here. So in June, we're doing all European guests. Make sure you guys tune in for that. Robin Mukherjee is going to be, we've recorded his episode already since they're in Europe. We've pre-recorded all the episodes in June. So he'll be on the show as well as a couple awesome other Europeans. And then, of course, we have confirmed we're recording an episode with Dustin Hillis, August 24th. So he will be,
Nice.
that'll be airing probably in September. So that'll be a big one. So look forward to that. Thank you guys so much for everything. My name's Andres. We'll see you on the next one. Bye, everybody. See